Hello and welcome to the 7th and penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift Winter League. Happy New Year to you as we prepare for two laps of the Yorkshire Harrogate Circuit for a total of 27.6 kilometres and 480 metres of climbing this morning. I'm joined once again for today's scratch race by Ronan McLaughlin of cyclingtips.com. And Ronan, there'll be many you'll be working off. The turkey with a little January shock to the system this morning.
There could well be. Yeah, it's great to be back on the Cycling Ireland Zwift League today, and nice break I think we all had there. But there could certainly be a few riders who, there'll be those riders who approach the Christmas holidays as sort of a opportunity for a mini training camp, so to speak, and they might have really knuckled down and worked on their and built their form nicely over the holidays. And there'll be those who maybe took it a bit more relaxed and put their feet up and had a few extra mince pies and maybe a few beverages as well. And they might find out today that hasn't been the best thing for their form, and that could keep it all very exciting today. We could see some riders who leap up the results today as a result of putting in some hard miles over the Christmas holidays, and there could be those who were used to seeing at the top of the results maybe slip a bit further down just as a result of maybe enjoying themselves slightly more over the holidays. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and certainly means that it's all to play for in pretty much all the categories today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to maybe one or two unpredictable results today. Well, in the fifth round in London, series leader Matteo Chigala edged Colm Sheehan and Richard Barry to take his third win of the series. Stephen Edmondson reasserted his authority over Class B. Ross Blaney was back out in front of the C group, and Kevin Walsh was the top D rider. Among the women, Claire Richardson has been upgraded by Zwift to the A category, and she took top points ahead of Linda Kelly. Michelle McKinney won Class B, Andrea Lyons was top C, and Berdine Driscoll continued her dominance of Class D. I caught up with South African native Berdine Driscoll, who is a recent convert to Cycling Ireland Zwift racing from her home in Waterville, County Kerry.
We started Zwifting August, September, and at first we started and we thought, okay, it's just a way to keep fit. And then with Facebook Cycling Ireland, I said to my husband, oh, what about this? Why don't we try the Zwift League? And it actually, I like the gaming aspect of Zwift a lot as well. So I was like, so you can upgrade your bicycles and get more wheels. And yeah, it's quite a lot of fun, I would say.
And so tell us a little bit about the league. Have you ever met Siobhan Kelly? Because the two of you are ever present in the league. You've participated in all the rounds. I think Siobhan might have missed one, but you've been to all of them. What sort of an experience is this? And you are presumably racing against people that you rarely meet, if ever.
Yes, it's quite interesting because she's just an avatar and I've got no idea what she looks like or where in Ireland she lives or any of those things. And it's just every week you switch on and you see, this one is on as well. And so I have to make a plan and stay ahead.
And has it helped to motivate you to do more training than you ordinarily would do, the Cycling Ireland Zwift League?
Definitely. It's great fun. And so my husband and me, we have a meetup in Zwift once a week to check out the route so we know what's coming up. And then on Saturday mornings, we sit there and we do our training and we do our Zwift League. And yeah, it's actually quite fun. You think, okay, it's so much pressure. You have to beat these people now and you have to do well.
In the league standings, Heather Foley of Maryland Wheelers is the top A-class rider after 6 races. Michelle McKinney now has a commanding lead in Class B following Richardson's upgrade. Andrea Lyons heads Class C and Berdine Driscoll controls Class D. Among the men, Matteo Chigala has extended his lead to 70 points over Richard Barry, with Colm Sheehan third among the A riders. Connacht's Stephen Edmondson has a healthy lead among the Bs, Ross Blaney is the top C rider, and Kevin Walsh has moved into a narrow Class D lead. Conor Verbruggen of Bray Wheelers is currently 5th in the Class A standings. Hello and welcome to the 7th and penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift Winter League. Happy New Year to you as we prepare for 2 laps of the Yorkshire 2019 UCI World's Harrogate Circuit for a total of 27.6 kilometres and 480 metres of climbing this morning. I'm joined once again for today's scratch race by Ronan McLaughlin of cyclingtips.com. And Ronan, there'll be many who'll be working off the turkey with a little January shock to the system this morning.
There could well be. Yeah, it's great to be back on the Cycling Ireland Zwift League today, and nice break I think we all had there. But there could certainly be a few riders who, there'll be those riders who approach the Christmas holidays as sort of a opportunity for a mini training camp, so to speak, and they might have really knuckled down and worked on their and built their form nicely over the holidays. And there will be those who maybe took it a bit more relaxed and put their feet up and had a few extra mince pies and maybe a few beverages as well. And they might find out today that hasn't been the best thing for their form, and that could keep it all very exciting today. We could see some riders who leap up the results today as a result of putting in some hard miles over the Christmas holidays, and there could be those who we're used to seeing at the top of the results maybe slip a bit further down just as a result of maybe enjoying themselves slightly more over the holidays. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and certainly means that it's all to play for in pretty much all the categories today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to maybe one or two unpredictable results today. Well, in the 5th round in London, series leader Matteo Cigala edged Colm Sheehan and Richard Barry to take his 3rd win of the series. Stephen Edmondson reasserted his authority over Class B. Ross Blaney was back out in front of the C group, and Kevin Walsh was the top D rider. Among the women, Claire Richardson has been upgraded by Zwift to the A category, and she took top points ahead of Linda Kelly. Michelle McKinney won Class B, Andrea Lyons was top C, and Berdine Driscoll continued her dominance of Class D. I caught up with South African native Berdine Driscoll, who is a recent convert to Cycling Ireland Zwift racing from her home in Waterville, County Kerry.
We started Zwifting August, September, and at first we started and we thought, okay, it's just a way to keep fit. And then with Facebook Cycling Ireland, I said to my husband, oh, what about this? Why don't we try the Zwift League? And it actually, I like the gaming aspect of Zwift a lot as well. So I was like, so you can upgrade your bicycles and get more wheels. And yeah, it's quite a lot of fun, I would say.
And so tell us a little bit about the league. Have you ever met Siobhan Kelly? Because the two of you are ever present in the league. You've participated in all the rounds. I think Siobhan might have missed one, but you've been to all of them. What sort of an experience is this? And you are presumably racing against people that you rarely meet, if ever.
Yes, it's quite interesting because she's just an avatar, and I've got no idea what she looks like or where in Ireland she lives or any of those things. And it's just every week you switch on and you see, this one is on as well. And so I have to make a plan and stay ahead.
And has it helped to motivate you to do more training than you ordinarily would do, the Cycling Ireland Zwift League?
Definitely. It's great fun. And so my husband and me, we have a meetup in Zwift once a week to check out the route so we know what's coming up. And then on Saturday mornings, we sit there and we do our training and we do our Zwift League, and yeah, it's actually quite fun. You think, okay, it's so much pressure, you have to beat these people now and you have to do well. And
in the league standings, Heather Foley of Maryland Wheelers is the top A-class rider after 6 races. Michelle McKinney now has a commanding lead in Class B following Richardson's upgrade. Andrea Lyons heads Class C, and Berdine Driscoll controls Class D. Among the men, Matteo Cigala has extended his lead to 70 points over Richard Barry, with Colm Sheehan 3rd among the A riders. Connacht's Stephen Edmondson has a healthy lead among the Bs, Ross Blaney is the top C rider, and Kevin Walsh has moved into a narrow Class D lead. Conor Verbruggen of Bray Wheelers is currently 5th in the Class A standings, and after 2 4ths and 2 5ths, the former triathlete is looking for a first podium finish today.
I've still never won a Zwift race. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I'm not a sprinty rider at all. I really can't sprint. That's the same on the road as it is on Zwift, so it's realistic in that regard anyway. And I benefit from being a light rider, so I do okay on the hills, but a lot of the small hills as well are essentially a sprint. Guys like Chris McGlinchey can really punch up them, and it's kind of everybody just trying to hang on and not get dropped, just absolutely flat out, if you know it's going to be a short effort. There's a real scrap kind of for third brewing. I think I'm sitting fifth at the moment, maybe overall. And it's going to be tough. I think most cyclists are pretty competitive once you're in a league, and you can see that there's people just a few points ahead of you. It's hard to not log on and give it a go.
So, Ronan, just two opportunities left in the league to make an impact, and the Harrogate circuit they're using today probably looks a little bit easier on paper than it actually is.
Yeah, certainly. It's on the course profile there. It doesn't look demanding, but really when you get onto Zwift and you ride this course, anybody who's done it before will certainly agree that there's very little flat road on the course. There's very little chance for recovery, and there's also a couple of steep little climbs on it. So it'll be a testing course for sure. It should have quite an impact on the size of the group coming to the finish line. I imagine it'll be a reduced group that sprinted out for the win, and it'll certainly make some exciting action for us to commentate on today.
So those riders that maybe don't have a big sprint might have a bit more of an opportunity on this circuit?
Yes and no. There's certainly an opportunity there to try and distance some of the stronger sprinters, but at the same time it's incredibly hard to break away solo on Zwift, and there isn't really the terrain on today's course to make a huge attack and to power yourself clear of a chasing group. And especially the run on towards the finish is there's plenty of draggy roads there, and it just makes it that little bit more challenging for anybody who wants to try and hold off a chasing group, and I imagine it'll be, as I said, a reduced group fighting it out for the win.
Going to be exciting stuff. Well, we're all set for round 7. The riders are assembling on the start line, warming up on their trainers and getting set for a frenetic getaway. Let's head down and see who's going racing this morning. League racing that have come to Harrogate today. We're underway in the early stages of this 7th and penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, and some of the heavy hitters have decided to go on the attack in the early stages. I can tell you that Chris McGlinchey has returned to the series, that he is graced with two victories already in his forays in this second edition of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. So too Matteo Cigala on the attack in the early stages. It's all action up front among the men A competitors. I can tell you we've got a couple of interlopers, a couple of visiting riders. Lee Torres from Brazil, Zach Harner is up front as well, and they've been joined by the likes of Jonathan Caulfield, Richard Barry, Matteo Cigala, and that is an important attack that has just been neutralised because Chris McGlinchey decided that there was every reason to go on the attack and see could he possibly split the group early on, infiltrated a little group that had a significant advantage up to 10 seconds at one stage. That's been drawn back, and we have a fairly large group up front among the leading A riders who are underway in this 7th round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. This Harrogate circuit, Ronan, is challenging, and there's a little bit of a grippy climb, comes about 7.5 kilometres into this course.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenging course today, but very interesting to see the sort of tactics and the racing going on right from the start here today. It's not very often that we see breaks going on the very first lap here, and we've seen a very, very strong move go away there, and the riders behind had to be alert to it right from the off and shut it down just before that small group of 4 riders got a gap that was too big to shut down. So yeah, hopefully we see some similar action throughout this race, and no doubt we'll see some stiff competition coming on towards the finish today as well.
Conor Verbruggen going for that elusive first victory, first podium indeed in Cycling Ireland Zwift League racing. Who would rule him out? He is safely nestling in this group at the moment. He's figured out the technique for starting fast and maintaining that frenetic pace. Little bit of a gap developing among those leading riders up front at the moment. Starting to lose a couple of riders. That his sustained burst of attacking in the early stages did actually serve to whittle down the group, which was more than 50 strong in the first couple of kilometres. I can tell you we've just completed our 6th kilometre of racing. When we reach 7.5 kilometres roughly, we'll start a climb of about just over a kilometre. It's not insignificant. It's the Yorkshire King of the Mountains, and it will be a little bit of a leg gripper. Not long but it is intense. And give you a couple of names. Jonathan Caulfield, as we've mentioned, is in there. Porrico Flynn is in there. Watch out for Liam Holohan. He's a British rider, former professional rider. He's only stopped in the last couple of years. Still very fit, very strong. Will certainly know these roads very well indeed. Keen Ryan is in the mix at the moment. Chigala, we've already mentioned. Jason Henry, watch out for his powerful finish if he can bring it to the finish today. Richard Barry from Cork is in the group and pushing hard for a result. And we've got a lot of visiting riders, the likes of Britain's Tom Denwood, Gavin Lancaster, Alan Glendinning from Northern Ireland is up front at the moment. Joe Pirot is a Belgian rider. Andreas Kirk from Denmark. Zach Harner, we've mentioned, the US rider, and plenty of other top Irish riders involved at the moment, as well as we look to see how this one is going to play out. Are they going to be able to save something for this climb to come, and just who will be thinking about an attack, or who's going to go for it right now? Well, we've got Caulfield with just a marginal advantage, and he's just just dangling off the front indeed of the group at the moment. Torres is the Brazilian rider that's just decided to ambush him and go for a little bit of a leg breaker. I wonder, is this a little bit too early on this hill?
Yeah, it's a long way to go from here for a solo rider, but perhaps just find himself drifting off the front there, maybe unintentionally, and seems to have been brought back into the group now. And certainly this opening lap has been frantic in this front group, and we'll probably see a lot of riders under pressure already, and perhaps we'll see it whittle down even further on this first lap. And we just see there, Matteo Chigala, the camera just happened to be on him as we came down round that down the descent and round the bridge there and onto this climb. He was right at the back on the descent, trying to recover as much as he could, freewheeling down there, and we can see him now. He's right up to second place in the group to try and position himself well for this tough drag back up here.
One of the top-ranked riders in the world of Zwift racing, Chris McGlinchey, knows exactly how to get the power out in pretty much the ideal way. Richard Barry's picked up the wheel of the man who will start favourite today, despite the fact that he's languishing a little bit in the order. He's back in 7th, 8th position in the league indeed. 2 finishes, three participations, 2 wins and a second place. He was somewhat disappointed, I think, to come up with a second place finish a little bit earlier on in the league, but he was bested on that occasion by Matteo Chigala. Chigala with 3 wins sits astride the point standings with a significant advantage of 70 points over Richard Barry. Richard Barry, the St Finbar Cycling Club man, his fellow Corkman from Blarney. Colm Sheehan third in the standings at the moment with a couple of second place finishes, a couple of thirds, 4 podiums from the first 6 rounds, and Colm Sheehan like to see what he could do about maybe breaking his duck and coming up with the first Cycling Ireland Zwift League victory today. 2 more opportunities, including this morning's fair, as we see the intensity of the effort that Richard Barry's making. Over 400 watts at the moment. That's not a game face. He's not pulling faces there for fun. This one is hurting. His heart rate is up over 190 beats per minute. Maximum intensity there. Up under the barrier and over the top of the climb, and he's right up at the front.
Yeah, he sure is, and it's a huge effort to be putting out so early into the race here, and it shows his intention to maybe just make the selection very early on in today's race. And he's obviously come through the Christmas period with good condition and good form, as we were referring to earlier. But we seen just in that climb there, just as it really pitched up, Richard Barry laying down all the watts that he had, and we're on to the descent now. That'll give a few riders a chance to come back, but it's certainly caused a gap here. We can see just about 9 in this leading group at the moment, with 2 seconds back to 10th place.
Yeah, the video there, instructive, isn't it? He knows how to get into that super tuck and how to recoup those joules of energy at just the right moment. Makes the effort when he needs to. He's really tuned to how this works, and at the front of the group, in the company of Chris McGlinchey, we have riders from Spain who've indeed visited this event in the past and this series in the past. Matteo Chigala, his Zwift setup is pretty impressive as well. Another man who's just working out exactly how to save energy on this descent. Quick reminder, by the way, this is the penultimate round of this series. We are going to have 4 one-day races coming up immediately afterwards. So we're going to continue the Zwift League racing courtesy of Cycling Ireland at the immediately concluding, or at least the week following the conclusion of this series next Saturday. So we'll continue it on for the following 4 Saturdays. We could have a bit of league racing to come after that. And we've got some interesting innovations. Could have a little bit of handicap racing, chase racing, Australian pursuit racing, call it what you will. It's all in the mix, and it's been discussed as the potential for some of those one-day races. We'll give you details of that to come in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, we'll focus on the action at the moment. Conor Verbruggen up towards the front. He's managed to stay in contention here. We'll try and get a sense of what sort of damage has been done by that effort. And it looks to me, Ronan, as if we've got a group of 16 that have separated themselves from the herd. The best of the rest now languishing some 22 seconds back. Those 16 riders up front look to be the class of the field.
Yeah, they sure do, and you can see there, on the course profile, today's course doesn't look that demanding, but quite often it's how the riders decide to race a course that decides whether it's a challenge or not. And we can see these riders here today. They've basically held nothing back in this first lap. It's been attack after attack. We've seen right from the second we came on air that there was a break had been established, and that was brought back, and then immediately more attack and action again. And it's left us now with a situation. We've got quite a small front group on the first lap, and we'll probably see that whittle down even further now on the second lap. And quite a few of the top, or the currently top ranked riders in the Zwift League are in here, but no doubt there's a few that have missed out as well.
Yeah, 16.3 kilometres left. It's a short, sharp shock, isn't it? And as we mentioned, some riders will have wintered well. They will have holidayed with intensity, some on the bike, some off the bike. And he's going to be the ones that have carried good form into this, as Chris McGlinchey used that van to tuck into the group and save a little bit of energy. You got to use that one when you possibly can. I wonder if, a lot of riders will think that when they get the Aero helmet one, that's the one they might keep for the finish, but that's the kind of one they want to use up. Now we pick up on the leading women competitors, and it is the leader among the women's A competitors. Heather Foley has rejoined the series this week, and she is unsurprisingly up front among the leading women competitors. She's in a small but select group of riders out front and putting out the sort of watts that are producing, well, it's over 300 watts at this point. She's approaching the hill now and picking up of course, the women started 1 minute behind the last of the male group, so they're hoovering up the riders from the D and the C categories up front. And Heather Foley, former national road race champion, as we've mentioned before, also a reigning duathlon champion, a former triathlon champion. She's done it all, not afraid to get her feet wet, and indeed the rest of her wet as well. And she's out there and pressing on and stretching it out front, and indeed distancing the other competitors in that group that she was in. There may have been more male competitors indeed in that group. So we're trying to pick up on zwiftpower.com and see if we can get any information on exactly what's happening among the women competitors. But we have managed to find Heather Foley out on the course, and it's clearly a demonstration of physique, power, athletic ability, and the way that she's just hoovering up those riders and casting them off behind her is impressive stuff indeed.
Yeah, and we can see it's on that same climb as we've seen the Richard Barry attack on earlier, and at an average of 6%, it's by no means an easy climb. We can just see the difference here that Heather Foley is making with this surge up the climb and just passing rider after rider in front of her, and it's impressive to watch now.
Now, a quick update on what's happening among the male competitors. As you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, that's the update on the leaders up front in the male A group. And Lee Dores, who's a visitor from Brazil, he's not part of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, has managed to open up a little bit of an advantage. He's got 10 seconds over the best of the rest, which includes Matteo Cigala, the series leader. Richard Barry safely in there as well. And there could well be a little bit of eyeballing, and they won't be too concerned about Dores disappearing up the road, really.
Certainly not. No, as a visiting rider, he'll not be taking any of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League points. So the riders who are up there in the overall standings that we're concerned with today will be more looking at each other and basing their tactics on what the other top ranked riders are doing in the Irish League, and to some extent they can let Dorez here disappear up the road, especially if he's putting in a performance such as this. They might have no option about it, and they're better just to focus their tactics on those who are closest to them in the overall standings as we reach sort of the tail end of any league. That's usually how things play out, and the result on the day tends to take sort of secondary importance to the overall standings at this point, the end of any league.
I can tell you the virtual commissars are meeting at the moment to assess the legitimacy of Lee Dor's current contribution to this event. We're not seeing any heart rate data, so in actual fact the win may even be in question were he to cross the line in front of the group. As things currently stand, he's holding on to that advantage of 10 seconds now over the best of the rest behind, which includes all the heavy hitters, all the big names, including Matteo Cigala. Cian Ryan is in there, Conor Verbruggen, who says that he's not sure if he'll ever be able to win a Cycling Ireland Zwift League race. Don't believe it for a minute. He's a superbly competitive man who started a business during the pandemic. It's going well at the moment for him, and he's got this worthwhile and useful distraction of some Zwift League racing on a Saturday morning. He's a star competitor for Bray Wheelers, based in County Wicklow. Now racing in Harrogate in Yorkshire on the World Championship course. It's looking quite sunny there, isn't it? Of course, in 2019, when this circuit played host to the World Championships, it was a somewhat sodden week for everyone, wasn't it?
We've seen an attack here from Matteo Cigala.
And as you say it, Ronan, Matteo Cigala is on the attack.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's just closing the gap there to Chris McGlinchey or if he's actually going for a full force attack here or not, but certainly the action's heating up here again, and we can see the whole group is getting strung out by the power getting laid down at the front here.
Well, that has served to narrow the advantage of Lee Dorris, who I'll remind you is, we're not sure he's going to be categorised and classified at the conclusion of this event. Verbruggen safely in the group behind, now just 4 or 5 seconds behind the lone attacker up front, and that sustained effort and that cooperation in that group behind is serving to narrow the advantage of our rogue and lone leader out front, and is continuing to retain an advantage. I can tell you, it's narrowing a little bit. There's a small group that have been detached from the leaders, including Liam Holohan. Laurent Collin is a French visitor. Gavin Lancaster is in there, and they are now sitting somewhere around about 15 to 16 seconds behind the group, including Matteo Cigala, the series leader. So, question mark is, are they going to be able to get back on terms? Have they managed to vault themselves across from the chasers behind, or are they instead actually just starting to leak a little bit of time? I can tell you it's probably the former. At the moment, they're still continuing to retain the gap to the leaders up front. If anything, they're gaining a second or two here or there. One or two riders that have missed the move and are not involved at the moment. Jonathan Caulfield has been distanced. He finds himself 33 seconds behind, as indeed does Pádraig O'Flynn, not quite an ever-present, but very often right up towards the front. Meanwhile, Chris McGlinchey goes to the front of the league group. This could be significant.
Yeah, it sure could, and the challenge we'll see these small chasing groups have is that, in groups of 3 and 4, they're going to have a tough job to close into this bigger group once the road starts to tip downwards. As the road rises up here, they can use their sort of watts per kilo and close the gap second by second. But I think now, just as we crest this hill here, and it's a long sort of false flat downhill leading into another flat section, that group behind might struggle just to maintain the gap at that 18 seconds or so, and we could see it extend out quite rapidly here.
So we're well over the halfway point at this point. It's 2 laps indeed of this 13.8 kilometre circuit. 480 metres of climbing in total is not insignificant. McGlinchey goes he goes to the front, and every time he makes an appearance at the front, it serves to open up a couple of bike lengths over the rest. And Chigala is all over that one. He's well aware of the danger posed by Chris McGlinchey. Perhaps spots an opportunity, as indeed does Richard Barry. These are the heavy hitters. Chigala, of course, as I mentioned, with 3 wins already from the 6 rounds of this league. Richard Barry won round 2, was second in round 1, and has a couple of other podium finishes from rounds 4 and 6. So his consistent form has carried him to second in the league standings at the moment. We've got the drops as well at the end, of course, and that could prove significant. So an opportunity for the riders to drop their worst score. That could change things up a little bit. Richard Barry's dialed in, and he is pushing hard on the pedals. 330 watts. It's an intense effort, 177 beats per minute, but it's the sort of effort that Richard Barry can sustain for an unfeasibly long period of time. He's going to have to do something like that between now and the finish.
Yeah, certainly we can see compared to the effort he was putting in earlier at 190 something heart rate, if I remember right, and he's maybe relatively comfortable in the 170s that we see now. But one of the challenges that the riders will face here today is, in such a small group and in such a demanding course, there's no real chance to relax or come off the pedals or recover at all. It's a lot of the time you'll see the sort of experienced Zwift riders drift towards the back of the group, try and sit round the back and just put in as little effort as they can to maintain their position in the group. But with a group this small, and the terrain the way it is, being constantly up and down, you can't really get away with that, and that will play a factor now as we come in closer to the finish on this final lap, that there's just so little opportunity for recovery. We see every time Chris McGlinchey comes to the front, he's lighting up his watts per kilo there from putting in such an effort, and that just means that everybody in the group has to be alert at all times, and there's no opportunity just to relax that little bit that can be so welcome at times.
Just inside 10 kilometres remaining. Lee Dorres has been retained by the group, although he goes to the front once more. But again, some question marks over the data being recorded by the visiting Brazilian riders. So we'll focus our attention on Richard Barry, goes to the front of the group. Pirot, the Belgian visitor, is thereabouts. I've updated you on the Male A league standings with Chigala, Barry and Sheehan in the top 3 positions. Amongst the B riders, and we'll pick up on those a little bit later on, but Stephen Edmondson currently leads the league standings, as I've mentioned a little bit earlier on, from Vinnie O'Leary and Sean Higgins, John Gibbons, Paul Hamilton, Paul Crossan, all going well in the B standings. And it's a super competitive B league, I can tell you. The leading B riders often well in amongst the A riders who start a minute ahead of them by the conclusion of their races. McGlinchey just gravitating towards the front of that group on the descent. They won't need to be ever mindful of the danger that he poses. That group's thinning out up front. Among the C competitors, Ross Blaney, Greg Gout, Peter Kiley, Porrick Duggan, Jonathan Russell, John Morris, they're the leading riders. It's in North Down Cycling Club 1-2 indeed in the C competitors, and it's still finely poised. 50 points between the leading 2 riders, but drops will come into play there, so we'll keep an eye out for that. Kevin Walsh, Vincent Morgan, Gary Arrell, they're the leading D riders as well, so they're competing with impressive facility at the moment as we focus our attention once more on the leading A's.
Yeah, and they're just about to crest this next short drag that we see here, and then they'll be on to the climb where we've seen Richard Barry attack on the last lap, and that could be a real decisive moment in today's race. And that, if somebody launches another big attack like we've seen on the last lap, and the fact that the riders are so fatigued at this point of the race, it could really split this group wide open, and we could see riders move forward there and make a break towards the finish from that point.
Yeah, 1 or 2 riders struggling to follow the pace there. It's been all attacking, isn't it? It's a great course. It's up and down, up and down. No one hill is particularly difficult, but just the accumulation of those efforts tends to take its toll. And the number of riders up front at the moment, 13 in that lead group. The best of the rest now 37 seconds down. I can tell you with absolute certainty that no one's coming back to this group from the leaders. And league group, as I mentioned, includes the likes of Richard Barry, Chris McGlinchey, Chigala. Verbruggen is a rider who mentioned that he doesn't have quite the same sprint as the rest, has to find another way to win. When are we going to see the late attacks, and what's the latest that anyone can leave it?
Well, it might not be a case of leaving it as it is possible. Sometimes by making an attack slightly earlier than your competitors are expecting can sometimes just get you that a surprise advantage that once you get a gap open, you can sort of start building on that. And if you get that gap to be substantial enough, then you find a scenario where the riders chasing you behind end up sort of looking at each other to do more of the work and start second guessing each other's legs and how they're feeling, and what you can often end up finding is that one rider or two riders out front on their own can commit fully to an effort and build an advantage, while a group behind that you would expect to be strong just from the sheer numbers it has actually is slightly hesitant. Everybody in the group is slightly hesitant, and they end up not really working well together, and one or two lone attackers can skip away.
Pretty intense stuff at the moment. I mentioned the league standings amongst the men. It would be remiss of me not to include the women's league standings. Just to update you on those, of course, Heather Foley has won every time she's appeared among the A competitors. She now is, of course, visited and joined indeed by Linda Kelly and Claire Richardson. It's going to be interesting to see how the Clinchy Cycling Club rider gets on amongst the A's. Michelle McKinney is the standout rider amongst the B's. She has it all to herself really at this point. Although Kat Davis is back in contention, the Castlebar Cycling Club rider. Andrea Lyons, who we've heard from earlier on in the league, is the leader of the C category from Louise Mulvaney, Christine Neville and Anastasia Maichina, Aoife Kelly, Joanna Rogan and the rest. Bernadine Driscoll, who we were talking to earlier on in the programme, the South African rider who's based in County Kerry, and Siobhan Kelly have been going toe-to-toe through the first 6 rounds of this league and into round 7 as we approach the final 5 kilometres. Richard Barry with a few bike lengths advantage over the rest. Is this a sustained effort, momentarily pulling well over 400 watts, still sitting at a steady 360, 370? Sounds easy, it's anything but. His heart rate can tell a story. 193 beats per minute is similar to the sort of heart rate efforts that we were seeing from him at the top of the hill on the first lap. Suffice it to say, Richard Barry wants to get up the road.
He certainly does, yeah, and we're seeing the same tactic as he employed in the first lap, just attacking early on this climb. It levels off a little bit now just before it kicks up again, and certainly these two riders will be looking to build on their advantage, but the chasing group behind are sort of aware to it, and they're certainly coming back up to the two attackers, while we can also see a few riders just getting tailed off the back. So the selection is happening now just on this climb.
Down to the last 5k, Richard Barry with his effort. James Ashcroft is also pushing hard, 190 beats per minute as well from the British rider, and Matteo Chigala has to do something about that. Well, he manages to rejoin, indeed, led behind the group, including Chris McGlinchey. McGlinchey wants to keep this one tight. He's got the sprint finish, has the power effort that he needs at the conclusion, and the lead group numbers in total at this point, it's down to 9 riders. Each one of these little attacks is having a big effect. Conor Verbruggen now finds himself dangling at 3 seconds in arrears, 10th on the road, still well up in the league standings here. Conor Verbruggen got a decent haul of points on offer for the Bray Wheelers, man, given that some of the riders up front, indeed several of the riders up front, are actually visiting riders and won't be counting towards the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. But will he be able to get back on terms? 2.7 seconds down, he's closing the gap. It's a huge effort, 4 kilometres left. Will he be able to recover? And it's up and down all the way to the finish line. They'll have a couple of little descents, but after every one of these descents is another sustained effort, and will they recover in time to make the effort again?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is the ability to recover as quick as you can between efforts here. And of course nobody can recover fully between the efforts, but it's just about who can maximize the recovery they do get. And you can see now we're back into another climb here, and we can see the watts per kilo there on the right hand side of our screen lighting up again with all the riders laying down the power. But as you said, Declan, some of this leading group are visiting riders. I count up to 6 of them might be visiting riders, and that would mean that there's still a huge haul of points up for grabs from the riders chasing behind.
Yeah, down to the pump room and up this little drag here. We're in the spa town of Harrogate. They come to take the waters. It's all about a leisurely pursuit around here. That's the plan at any rate. So many people in the last couple of centuries have come to Harrogate for tourism reasons. It's anything but for these riders. They're in the virtual roads of South Yorkshire, and Harrogate's beautiful town, actually. Fantastic architecture, and it looks pretty good in the way that it's represented on Zwift today, as Chris McGlinchey rides along at the back of this group, surveying the riders in front, having a little look at what they're all capable of doing. And if it were possible to do so, he'd be looking left and right to see what sort of faces are being pulled by the riders that he's in the company of, because McGlinchey is at the back, punching tickets at the moment, but just looking, lurking, waiting to pounce. When will he pick his moment? He is the standout favourite for the finishing sprint, and the others know that, and they will have to try and find some way to conjure up a victory. I'm being perhaps a little bit unfair to Matteo Cigala, who has beaten Chris McGlinchey in a Cycling Ireland Zwift League event already, and he is one of the fastest finishers in Irish cycling on the road, and he's also one of the fastest competitors in Cycling Ireland Zwift League racing. He's got a handy advantage, and we did see that one or two riders managed to make it back up and into this group, and it seems like they've stalled just ever so slightly, fractionally up front.
Yeah, they certainly have stalled here. They're sort of hesitant as to who's going to launch the next attack, or maybe everybody just looking now towards the finish, recognizing that it's going to be difficult to break away on this course. And the once we get into the final kilometre, it's actually quite a difficult finish on this course, in that you turn on to the finishing straight and it's quite a steep little kick up. So a lot of the riders will be trying to recover as best they can for that, and certainly that kick back up just as before we get to the finish line will certainly prove decisive, I think, in this sprint. And that it's not a normal sprint on a flat road. It is quite a steep pitch up that the riders will have to launch their sprints on, and timing will be everything there as well. The old we all know on Zwift you have to launch your sprint a bit earlier than you would do in real life, but with the climb just before the finish today, that'll be doubly important just to get the timing right.
A finish made famous by the competitors in the Tour de France back in 2014. Mark Cavendish will not want to be reminded of just how that one played out. Ended up breaking his collarbone, didn't he? It wasn't what he had hoped for from that visit to his mum's hometown of Harrogate. But these riders are not going to have any worries about any physical difficulties above and beyond the physical difficulty they put themselves into by the efforts that they're going to make, as we're down to the final 1,300 metres, and McGlinchey is still playing a waiting game, stalking the rest, sitting at the back of the group at the moment. Other riders in there. Chigala's just one in front. He's playing, well, I was just saying he was going to play himself off Chris McGlinchey, but just as I said, he's starting to work his way up towards the top of the group. The Brazilian rider with no heart rate data, Lee Dora's towards the front. Verbruggen has gone to the front. This could be a time to launch an attack with 800 metres left. It's a long 800 metres. Here comes Chris McGlinchey, rolls over the top of Matteo Cigala, and making this right turn up this finishing drag up past Betty's tea room. Some of the other riders to conjure with. Richard Barry's gone to the front now. Verbruggen is slipping back into the group. Cigala's going to launch off the wheel of Chris McGlinchey and into the final 500 metres of racing, as Cigala has made his effort. He's got the featherweight power up, which is useful. It's only the van that's going to be able to assist Chris McGlinchey, so he's going to have to come with a late run if that's going to be of any assistance. Richard Barry is going to play his card, but has he got a card left to play as they come and crowd around him? Here comes Chris McGlinchey and Matteo Cigala. McGlinchey ahead of Cigala. Cigala looks to be all up here, and McGlinchey's going to get the win. McGlinchey it is who crosses the line to take the victory in round 7 of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. Chris McGlinchey ahead of Matteo Cigala by just over 0.3 of a second. Couple of visiting riders, Gringo and Ashcroft from Britain, followed by Richard Barry, who's the third ranking Cycling Ireland Zwift League rider. Pirot from Belgium, Ballinger from France, Harner from the United States. We've got a a Spanish rider, then a Brazilian rider. Then Conor Verbruggen comes in 11th place to score some useful points. Nathan Keown, Alan Glendinning, and a string of other riders. And we wait for the appearance of the rest. Indeed, Glendinning has almost a minute before we're going to see him as they continue to stream across the line. Massive effort there, beautifully judged, beautifully played once more for a second victory in the Cycling Ireland Zwift League Winter Series by Chris McGlinchey.
Yeah, it was a spectacular finish we seen there, and we seen, I think it was Conor Verbruggen who launched very early with maybe 800 meters to go to try, and as we heard earlier, he said he doesn't have the sprint to take a bunch kick, so he tried to preempt it and get himself a gap just before we turned onto the steep pitches here up towards the finish line. And we've seen both Christopher McGlinchey and Matteo Gigala, who ended up first and second, actually turned onto the finishing straight, I think, last and second last in that front group, and they just paced their effort perfectly on the climb, kept themselves in contact with the leaders, and then just as the road began to flatten out, they really launched their sprint and timed it perfectly.
Well, there's confirmation of the finishing order of the men's A group at the conclusion of round 7. It's Chris McGlinchey that gets the victory ahead of Matteo Gigala. A couple of visiting riders, Gringo and Ashcroft behind. Then Richard Barry, Pirot, Ballinger, Harner, all visitors, as indeed is Matting C and Lee Doris in the next of the Irish riders. In 11th place was the man who launched the sprint. As we heard, Conor Verbruggen made the bid for glory. Wasn't a payoff, but a beautifully judged success once more from Chris McGlinchey. So hopefully we can pick up on some of the other groups that are coming in. We're going to try and see if we can pick up on the leading women riders as we digest that performance by Chris McGlinchey once more, who's maintained his ability and his strength. It's been very impressive work indeed. As we pick up on Heather Foley out on the course. Now, we're not absolutely sure that she's leading the women competitors, but she's certainly going to be thereabouts. Of that we can be quite sure. She's got quite a way to go, so we just got to see if we can pick up some information. SwiftPower.com has been a little bit recalcitrant today in terms of giving us the updates and letting us know exactly who's to the fore there. But Heather Foley has just a little bit of a way to go before she makes it to the finish. Let's try and digest that success once more from Chris McGlinchey. The power-ups played a role there at the back end, Ronan. I mean, it was Matteo Gigala had the featherweight one, which might have been the better of the two. No one had the aero advantage, the aero helmet, which is perhaps the one that everyone wants.
Yeah, certainly. You know, as we all know, you kind of just have to take what you're given when it comes to the power-ups and make the best of what you have there. But certainly Matteo had the featherweight one, and he used it on the climb, which is probably the best place to put it. But I think after that, then we've seen an honest sprint between the leading riders, and certainly Chris McGlinchey was, you know, well in front by the time they got to the line there, and had when we looked at the watts per kilo, throughout the sprint, he had the advantage there.
So there's the avatar of Linda Kelly, who has joined up with Heather Foley. Linda Kelly joined the Cycling Ireland Zwift League after a couple of rounds and has really just played herself in nicely, and has certainly got the hang of it, I think, to say the least. And she is the Leinster-based rider who has scored a couple of useful second-place finishes. She was second to Richardson in the last event and second to Foley on the previous event. But Linda Kelly looks like this. She's really coming into her own and is in that group with Heather Foley. So Foley's in a fight here. It's going to be the first time. Foley was absent, of course, from the last round. First time that Heather Foley has really faced a difficult competition, and she'll relish that. She'll be delighted, actually, indeed, that she has got someone up there that she's really going to have to battle and fight for this win, and she's not just racing against the other male competitors.
Yeah, certainly. You know, a bit of competition is always welcome by the top competitors, and you know, we could see it get quite tactical here now as we come in towards the finish again. We've got this slight drag up here now that we see the riders are on, and then they'll dip back down again to the pump room as we've seen the other race do, and then it's that sprint for the line. So it'll be interesting to see what way these leading riders play it. And we see Linda Kelly just building a slight advantage here now, but we do just crest out in this climb, and I think it'll come back together again for a bit of a sprint finish.
Yeah, this could be critical. We'll see whether Linda Kelly has managed to open up a significant advantage, and it is not the case, as Foley has managed to attach herself once more to the wheel of her nearest rival. And there you have it. There's the update. Great that we've managed to get this graphic to give you the information that Linda Kelly from Leinster is putting out over 4 watts per kilo, but it's not quite enough to usurp Heather Foley, not just yet at any rate. Foley manages to stay on terms, and they're continuing to overhaul riders from the male groups ahead and immediately distance them, as Claire Richardson is sitting a little bit further back at the moment, showing at 24 seconds removed. She'll struggle to get back up on terms. Pivoy is another Irish rider, Smith as well, and one or two others that have made the visit to Harrogate this morning for this 7th round of the league. Useful time to use a power-up for Linda Kelly, but I wonder whether Heather Foley has any power-ups available for the finish.
Yeah, I think she just used the featherweight power up there, and if I'm positioning myself right, I think we're on a slight downhill here, so maybe mistimed that, or maybe a slip of the spacebar key or something there, but not the best use of a power up, but certainly coming into the finish here now, it'll if anybody has a power up, that will be the time to use it.
Yeah, it's a case of holding what you have. It might not be the one that you want, but it is whatever you've got, you use it to your best effect.
And sometimes you can find that, with sweaty palms and sweaty fingertips and that you can accidentally use a power up when you don't mean to, or you're just trying to change camera view, or other times you're frantically trying to use a power up and you can't get it to activate just because you've got sweaty fingertips or something, and you're using a touchscreen device. So not always as easy as it might seem just to hit the power up button.
Well, other riders in that group using the power-ups, but as we understand it, we only have 2 women competitors in this group, so not to be confused here. We have the rider in pink is Linda Kelly. Heather Foley is the rider in the that we're looking at on screen at the moment, that is using this featherweight power-up to go for the line. It's a big push for glory here from Heather Foley as she opens up an advantage, and we're approaching the conclusion of this event, as she's still got the right turn to make and a few other little changes to make. And I wonder, will Linda Kelly be able to get back on terms here? It's going to be interesting. Other riders attaching themselves, but Linda Kelly is the rider in pink who's back up and onto the wheel of Heather Foley. So that one not quite paying off, or perhaps it wasn't a full-blooded effort from Heather Foley. Again, it might not necessarily have been the ideal time to play that card.
Possibly not, but when you're playing out a tactic, you don't know if it's going to be successful or not. And had that worked out there, we might have been calling it a genius move. So that's a chance you take in bike racing.
Well, absolutely. Heather Foley finding herself in the unloved position of being on the front as they approach this ramp to the finish. It is a significant ramp, I can tell you. If you look at the shops to your left-hand side, it really is steep little rise at the end of, almost 28 kilometres of racing. It is intense, to say the least. Foley will be less concerned with the 2 riders just in front, but she is opening up an advantage over Linda Kelly immediately. Although Kelly got back on last time, Heather Foley goes to the front once more and distance herself and is powering to the finish line. I think there's no doubt about it that it's Heather Foley that's going to get the victory here. She's within touching distance of the conclusion of this 7th round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, and Heather Foley has been in a battle today. She's had to work for this one. It's another haul of 100 points is going to go her way. Going to head out west to Heather Foley as she runs to the finish line. The effort has been worthwhile today. Over 5 watts per kilo in the conclusion of this sprint, and that's it. Foley gets the win. Linda Kelly has certainly put it up to her, and they'll battle again through the final round coming up next Saturday, and we'll have that for you as we focus on the 3rd rider on the road, 3rd of the Irish riders, Claire Richardson from Northern Ireland. Just got a quick, very brief sight of Claire Richardson, who's about 20 odd seconds down, is coming up for 3rd among the women A competitors, and she'll get that haul of 75 points to add to her total. somewhat miffed to be out of the B category, but that's the way it works with Zwift. They have uprated her, and it's elevated her to a higher status as a result of her performances. So that's it from the 7th round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. Victories among the women for Heather Foley and for Chris McGlinchey amongst the men. We'll be back next Saturday for the 8th and final round of this Cycling Ireland Zwift League winter edition. Please do join us for that. But from myself, Declan Quigley, from Rona McLaughlin in a virtual alongside situation, we'll be back next week, but it's goodbye for now.